On the night of December 29, 1972, a state-of-the-art jumbo jet, Eastern Airlines Flight 401, departed from New York City, bound for Miami. On board were 163 passengers and a seasoned crew of 13. The flight seemed perfectly routine. The skies were clear, the mood was calm, and everyone was looking forward to a smooth landing. But an innocuous warning light, a tiny bulb in the cockpit, would soon become the focal point of a tragedy that continues to send shivers down the spine, not just for what happened, but for what happened after. As the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar began its final approach into Miami International Airport, the pilots noticed something strange. The light that confirms the nose landing gear is down and locked failed to illuminate. Captain Robert Loft, a veteran with over 30,000 flight hours, decided to abort the landing and circle over the vast, dark expanse of the Florida Everglades to troubleshoot the problem. He engaged the autopilot to hold their altitude at 2,000 feet. In the cockpit, the atmosphere grew tense. The three-man flight crew, Captain Loft, First Officer Albert Stockstill, and Flight Engineer Don Repo, became completely absorbed by this one single problem. They were trying to figure out if the gear was actually down or if it was just a faulty bulb. Repo descended into the hell hole, a small avionics bay beneath the cockpit, to visually inspect the landing gear assembly. The conversation was focused, technical, and entirely centered on that one stubborn light. But in their intense focus, a critical oversight occurred. Unbeknownst to them, the autopilot had been accidentally disengaged. No one noticed. The massive jet, flying in the pitch-black darkness over the featureless swamp, began a slow, imperceptible descent. The crash was catastrophic. Of the 176 people on board, 101 lost their lives, including Captain Loft and Flight Engineer Repo. First Officer Stockstill survived the initial impact, but died on his way to the hospital. The rescue operation was a harrowing ordeal in the dark, alligator-infested swamp. But as the physical wreckage was cleared, a new, far stranger story began to unfold. A story that suggests some of the crew of Flight 401 never truly left. The tale of the haunting of Eastern Airlines began quietly. Parts salvaged from the wreckage of Flight 401, particularly from the galley, were installed in other L-1011 jets in the Eastern Fleet. Soon after, flight crews on these specific planes started reporting bizarre and unsettling encounters. A flight attendant on a flight to Mexico City was preparing meals when she saw the face of a man looking back at her from the oven window. She screamed, fetching two other crew members. They too saw the pale, silent face of a man they recognized as Don Repo, the flight engineer who had died in the crash. He reportedly warned them, "Watch out for fire on this airplane." Chillingly, the flight was later canceled due to a serious engine problem. The sightings weren't isolated. On another flight, a captain was doing his pre-flight checks when he encountered a man in a captain's uniform sitting in the first-class cabin. He engaged him in conversation, but felt an unnerving sense of unease. He later identified the man from a photograph as the deceased Captain Robert Loft. The apparition then vanished before his eyes. These weren't just fleeting glimpses. Many reports described full, interactive apparitions. A flight attendant reported seeing Don Repo in the cockpit, fixing a circuit breaker. Another saw him in the galley making coffee. The apparitions of Loft and Repo were described as lifelike and concerned, often appearing to help with mechanical issues or warn of potential dangers as if still on duty. These weren't terrifying ghosts in the traditional sense. They were helpful, professional presences, trying to prevent another tragedy. The sheer number of witnesses was staggering. Pilots, flight engineers, and flight attendants, even an Eastern Airlines vice president, all claimed to have seen them. The stories became so widespread and consistent that the airline's management, though publicly denying the rumors, allegedly began quietly removing the salvaged parts from their fleet. Author John G. Fuller investigated these claims for his book, The Ghost of Flight 401. He interviewed dozens of witnesses, from airline executives to flight crews, and found their accounts to be incredibly consistent and credible. These were seasoned professionals, not prone to fantasy, all telling variations of the same impossible story. They described seeing the apparitions, feeling sudden cold spots, and hearing voices when no one was there. The phenomena seemed tied to the salvaged equipment, as if the energy or consciousness of the deceased crew members was somehow imprinted onto the physical parts of their fallen aircraft. Some try to explain these events through psychology. They suggest it was a manifestation of collective grief and trauma within the airline. After such a devastating accident, perhaps the stressed minds of the flight crews were playing tricks on them, projecting the images of their lost colleagues. It's a plausible theory, but it struggles to account for the specificity and consistency of the sightings, especially when multiple people witnessed the same event simultaneously. How could a group hallucination warn of a real, verifiable engine problem? Others point to the idea of residual energy. This theory posits that traumatic events can leave an energetic imprint on a location or an object. The intense focus and final moments of Captain Loft and Don Repo might have been so powerful that they left an indelible mark on the components of their plane. When those parts were placed into new environments, the recording began to play back. As the years passed and the L-1011 fleet was retired, the sightings of the ghosts of Flight 401 faded away, but the legend endures. It's a story that transcends a simple ghost story. It's a testament to the dedication of a flight crew who, even after death, seem to continue their duty to protect their passengers and their fellow crew members. The crash of Flight 401 was a tragedy, born from a moment of human distraction, a tiny bulb that led to a cascade of fatal errors. But the aftermath gave rise to a haunting legend of duty, responsibility, and a presence that lingered long after the wreckage was cleared. Whether you believe in ghosts or look for a more scientific explanation, the story of Flight 401 serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most inexplicable events arise from the most human of tragedies. Thank you for watching. What do you think happened on those Eastern Airlines flights? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unexplained, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that challenge the line between the known and the unknown. Stay curious.